He is a billionaire CEO, yet he chooses to disguise himself as a disabled man with limited mobility. This unusual act is entirely because of his recently deceased mother. That day, he visited his late mother's room, and to remember her, he sat in her wheelchair and sang her favorite song. Just then, a beautiful woman suddenly appeared behind him. She was a new neighbor looking for someone to help her move some things, and when Johnny tried to get up and assist, she immediately refused. Clearly, she assumed he was disabled. Johnny thought about explaining, but faced with such a beautiful girl, he swallowed his words, deciding to play along and deliberately knocked over a box beside him. After helping Johnny pick up the scattered items, Alessia was about to leave, kindly reminding him that if she ever needed anything, he could come find her next door. Determined to pursue this lovely neighbor, Johnny showed up at her door the next day, but when he tried to press the doorbell, he realized he couldn't reach it from his wheelchair. He then put on a pitiful expression, and when Alessia opened the door, he launched into an impromptu performance, saying he felt very lonely today and asked if they could have lunch together. Seeing his plan succeed, Johnny smiled with satisfaction. Later, they sat leisurely at the dining table, and Johnny, ever the gentleman, invited Alessia to dinner again. But Alessia kept dodging the topic, making the atmosphere increasingly awkward. Just as she was about to leave, Johnny felt a sudden urge to confess that he wasn't really disabled, but at the last second, reason took over, and instead, he declared that although he was disabled, he was a billionaire, owning hundreds of businesses across Italy and Europe. Though Alessia was skeptical, she sensed there was more behind his words and invited him to visit her countryside home that weekend, a proposal that struck a chord with Johnny, and he accepted without hesitation. However, upon arriving at Alessia's home, Johnny discovered her true intention was to introduce him to her sister. Chiara's fresh and pure beauty was like the first light of dawn, instantly stirring Johnny's heart, but the smile on his face soon froze. Seeing Chiara take a wheelchair out of the car, Johnny felt like he'd been struck by lightning, and when he looked around, everyone had a knowing smile. It was in that moment Johnny realized, in this game of love, he was the prey. At the dinner table, Johnny and Chiara were seated together, but throughout the entire meal, Johnny was as if shackled by invisible chains, unable to utter a single word. After dinner, they were arranged to enjoy the view outside, and during their conversation, Johnny learned that Chiara was a violinist who also enjoyed playing baseball. While Chiara spoke enthusiastically, Johnny seemed lost in another world, weighed down by complex emotions. Little did he know, this girl would go on to change his life forever. Later, he told his friends about the encounter, praising Chiara's beauty, but admitting he couldn't develop romantic feelings for her. His friends mocked him, saying he'd never win Chiara's heart, which only fueled Johnny's competitive spirit. He quickly took action, leaving a message for Chiara, hoping to see her again. To his surprise, Chiara showed up at his company the very next day, catching him off guard. In a panic, Johnny scrambled onto his desk to maintain his act, but fortunately, Chiara noticed nothing unusual. Chiara then invited him to watch her baseball game, and Johnny agreed without hesitation. On the field, Johnny witnessed another side of Chiara. Her eyes sparkled with determination and strength, as if defying the chains of fate, and Johnny was deeply moved by her spirit. After the game, Johnny invited Chiara to dinner, but unexpectedly found himself at a gathering for disabled individuals. Feeling completely out of place, Johnny struggled to blend in, doing his best to keep up appearances. That night, he woke up from a restless sleep, haunted by images of those disabled people, unable to bear this life of deception any longer. He needed to win Chiara's heart and end this bet as soon as possible. By chance, Johnny came across a concert announcement online, and the performer was none other than Chiara. He immediately bought tickets, planning to surprise her. Outside the concert hall, Johnny spotted an elderly man's electric wheelchair and bought it at a high price, happily riding it to the event. But what he didn't expect was the thunderous applause that erupted as soon as Chiara appeared on stage. As the music began, Chiara immersed herself in her performance, blooming under the spotlight like a flower basking in the sun, radiant and confident. For her, physical limitations seemed nothing more than a passing breeze. Chiara's music deeply touched Johnny once again, making him realize that true strength does not come from a perfect body, but from a brilliant soul. Johnny was overwhelmed with excitement and instinctively stood up from his wheelchair, drawing a surprised glance from an elderly woman nearby. As the concert ended, Johnny was already waiting quietly at the door. Chiara was delighted to see him, and they headed to a music-themed restaurant. Unlike before, Johnny was unusually talkative, and since meeting Chiara, he had never encountered such a strong and captivating woman. However, beneath this joy was a lingering sadness. Johnny wanted to confess his secret to Chiara, but feared that revealing the truth would make him lose her. This emotional conflict made his feelings all the more complex and delicate. Late at night, they strolled down the pedestrian street in their wheelchairs. Chiara took off her shoes, spread her arms, and reveled in the sensation of freedom. Johnny gently took Chiara's hand, leading her through the streets, their shadows intertwining under the night sky like a gentle poem. Every smile and every shy blush from Chiara made Johnny's heart flutter. Her shy, rosy cheeks spoke louder than any words of love. Eventually, they reached a hotel, and as they stood at the door of her room, their eyes locked locked, the air filled with a subtle, indescribable tension. Chiara was completely immersed in this tender moment, unaware that behind this seemingly perfect encounter lay a hidden wager. But by now, Johnny had long forgotten his original purpose. He would frequently call Chiara, sharing with her the various challenges he faced at work, while Chiara would tell him about the little things in her daily life. One cozy evening, Johnny invited Chiara to his villa. Under the soft glow of candlelight, they sipped red wine and whispered to each other in gentle tones. But just when the atmosphere was at its warmest, Johnny suddenly pulled out a sponge from under the table, pressed it to his chest, and with a mysterious gleam in his eyes, gestured for Chiara to join him in this unexpected adventure. With the press of a remote, the floor began to slowly sink, and water quickly filled the room. What was once an ordinary candlelight dinner transformed into a unique floating banquet. Chiara was deeply moved by Johnny's creativity. She had never imagined he would go to such lengths, allowing her to once again experience the sensation of standing atop gentle waves. In that shimmering, water-filled space, their hearts drew closer than ever before, and the surge of emotion made them share an irresistible kiss. That night, they confirmed their feelings for each other. However, as their relationship deepened, Johnny felt increasingly burdened. His secret weighed on him like a boulder, suffocating his heart. One day, he couldn't bear it any longer and called Chiara, but when he finally stood before her, he hesitated once again. As he listened to the soulful melody of Chiara's violin, Johnny could sense her sorrow and resilience. That music was like a sharp blade, piercing straight into Johnny's soul. Slowly, he began to lift himself from the wheelchair, determined to reveal the truth, but at the crucial moment, he always chose to back down. Holding Chiara in his arms, Johnny's heart clenched tightly. He wanted to give himself a little more time to find the right opportunity to confess. But then, Chiara's words filled him with fear. She revealed that after her car accident left her paralyzed, her ex-boyfriend had betrayed her. Because of that, Chiara despised liars, and Johnny had been deceiving her all along, which made him even more afraid to come clean. Torn between honesty and deceit, Johnny decided to seek help. He invited his secretary and friends to a gathering, hoping to muster the courage to confess. But at the dinner table, his hesitation pushed his friends to their breaking point. Still, Johnny couldn't take that crucial step. Meanwhile, Alessia unexpectedly ran into Johnny's brother at the apartment. Through their conversation, she learned the shocking truth that Johnny was perfectly healthy. Enraged, Alessia stormed off to confront Johnny, slapping him across the face before ruthlessly exposing his lies. A guilty Johnny did not fight back, but Alessia was determined to tell her sister the truth. Panicking, Johnny leapt from his wheelchair and chased after Alessia, desperate to explain. He admitted to deceiving everyone, but insisted his feelings for Chiara were genuine. He pleaded with Alessia to let him confess to Chiara himself, but Alessia refused to listen. Helpless, Johnny went to the ballroom and sought his father's help. He asked how he could reveal the truth without losing Chiara. His father suggested taking Chiara to Lourdes, a place known for its miracles, where countless patients sought hope and healing. Perhaps, during a moment of prayer, Johnny could stand up before Chiara, creating a miracle that might save their love. Meanwhile, Alessia found Chiara and subtly urged her to stay away from Johnny, but Chiara appeared lost in thought, her expression unreadable. At that moment, Johnny called, warmly inviting Chiara to visit Lourdes with him the next day. Alessia couldn't understand why they needed to go there. In the eyes of the world, love is often seen as a beacon of hope for optimistic dreamers who weave their feelings with endless longing and unwavering belief. But for someone like Chiara, her wish was simple and pure. She only hoped love would come to her. When Chiara told Johnny she hated liars, it was actually a warning. If the thin veil of deceit were ever pierced, Chiara would not hesitate to walk away. The next day, under clear skies and bright sunshine, Johnny and Chiara boarded a bus to Lourdes. Throughout the journey, Johnny's heart churned like a restless sea, never finding peace. In stark contrast, Chiara seemed unusually cheerful. She could accept the illusion of a miracle, but she could never tolerate a real betrayal. After a long trip, they finally arrived at a church in Lourdes. As they prepared to pray, a priest immediately sensed something was off with Johnny, so he called Johnny alone into the inner chamber of the church. The moment Johnny stepped in, the priest sternly reprimanded him. The priest saw through Johnny's facade instantly, warning him that this sacred place could not tolerate false miracles. He emphasized that every patient came here with faith and should leave with hope. If Johnny were to stand up here, it would be a desecration of that faith, a deception that could never be forgiven. Faced with the priest's stern reprimand, Johnny was left speechless. All he could do was curiously ask how the priest had seen through his act. In the end, Johnny remained seated in his wheelchair, slowly rolling out of the church's grand doors. At that moment, Chiara's heart was filled with disappointment and confusion. The one miracle she had pinned her hopes on had shattered, and though the road ahead was still long, the fragile veil between her and Johnny would inevitably be torn apart. Distracted and lost in thought, she didn't notice the speeding truck rushing towards her. In that critical moment, a strong arm pulled her back from the edge of death. Chiara still chose to call this a miracle, while Johnny chose to remain silent. This left Chiara feeling utterly helpless, and so she could only turn away in silence. Even as Chiara was about to board the bus, Johnny said nothing. He had deceived her once before, and refused to use the notion of a miracle to deceive her again. What he didn't know was that Chiara was willing to accept even a false miracle. From that moment on, they completely lost contact. Johnny's life gradually lost its direction. Work became dull and meaningless, as if without Chiara, everything had lost its purpose. Until one day, during a company's new product launch, he saw images of sports equipment for people with disabilities flashing across the screen. Immediately, Chiara's image surfaced in his mind. He could no longer suppress his feelings and decided to be brave for love one more time. He rushed to his car and sped towards Chiara's hometown, confessing everything to her grandmother and desperately seeking to know where Chiara had gone. Seeing Johnny's determination, her grandmother revealed Chiara's whereabouts, but not without a stern warning. If he ever dared to deceive Chiara again, she would make sure he truly understood what life in a wheelchair felt like. With the directions given by her grandmother, Johnny intercepted the bus Chiara was riding. Amidst the shocked gazes of the passengers, he walked straight to Chiara's side. This was the last thing Chiara wanted to see, and her attitude was cold and firm. Left with no choice, Johnny could only get off the bus. In the days that followed, Johnny sank into a deep well of self-punishment. He subjected himself to brutal physical training, hoping to numb the wounds in his heart through sheer physical pain. Long hours of excessive exercise finally left him collapsed on the ground, exhausted beyond measure, but in the next moment, a familiar figure quietly appeared before him. Though Chiara could not accept the reality of his lie, she was willing to meet a brand new Johnny with a fresh heart, a Johnny who was simply himself. This is the true essence of love. It is not about changing the other person to fit your expectations, but about accepting and cherishing each other as you are. Even if everything exceeds the initial imagination, as long as the love in your heart remains unwavering, it will shine with a brilliance all its own.